Hi, I'm Sally Kirkman from sallykirkman.com, and I'm here today with my dear friend and fellow astrologer, Christina Rodenbeck from oxfordastrologer.com. And we're here today to do our monthly forecast on astrology, what's coming up. We're going into Scorpio season. Yay! Says the Scorpio.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going into Scorpio season, a lot to talk about coming up, but perhaps we'll have a little look at what's been going on and how this past eclipse season has been, Christina.
Oh my God. Oh my
Lordy.
goddess, in fact.
Oh my
Lordy.
goddess. Yeah. How's it been for you? How's things been this past month?
Well, okay. I would say it feels accelerated. It feels very released. I'm back into writing my book. I'm nearly done. So that's good. So because I had a long time off, I couldn't get down to it. So I was kind of released into that. Because for me, the eclipse was sort of third housey. And the second one. But the first one, I was in Venice for that first eclipse in Pisces. And that was unbelievably potent to be there when it was the first high water of the year. So, the Acqua Alta. So the water comes in, it floods all the streets, they put the boards up, and there's a siren that goes off. So you hear the siren, and you know that within, I can't remember whether it's half an hour or 40, that the water's coming.
Yeah.
And so there's this incredible sense of anticipation as the water is coming. And of course, because it was this eclipse, it was more so. And so that was going on. And so there was these floods of water, which is really dramatic and beautiful, by the way.
Yeah.
It's not,
yeah.
I don't know why people think Venice smells. Venice doesn't smell. They have an incredible, it's very clean, Venice. As compared to some other places in Italy. It's very clean. So there were the floods of water. And then the other part of this was that there were also the floods of people. Venice is overwhelmed by crowds. I have to say, if you're thinking of going to Venice, you've got to go in January or sometime when no one else goes. Because I thought we were going at a less crowded time and it was still overwhelmed by these crowds of people.
Yeah.
But on the night of that full moon, the crowds had receded. I don't know where they went. And we went to St. Mark's Square finally, which was suddenly almost empty. So it was almost empty, but the big cafes were open. The famous ones, the names of which I forget. So they were open, and there were 4 or 5 quartets competing. Playing different music with this full moon over St. Mark's Square in Venice. So that first eclipse was stunning for me. And I'm a Pisces, so it was near my Mercury, and so I had this incredible experience of great beauty. And one of the things about Pisces is that it's a musical sign. It's a sign of one of the musical signs. So I was having this experience of the sound and vision and being in the middle of a dream, because Venice is a dream. So that was my experience of the first eclipse. Second eclipse, geez.
I know, it's been very tumultuous, hasn't it? And I have to say on that first eclipse in the Pisces Virgo one, when the moon was in Pisces, I had a lovely full moon swim as well, with
perfect,
really bright red sunset, really bright red full moon, quite incredible, beautiful to be in the sea on that one. But also I did have 2 funerals, which I think I mentioned in the last podcast, that I got these 2 funerals, and a big theme for me this past month has been loss. It's things falling away. There was another friend who died on the eclipse in Libra, the beginning of October. And for me, that eclipse fell very close to my descendant, the relationship point, the other, and also, most importantly, the South Node. It was a South Node eclipse, wasn't it? A place of release, letting go. and that South Node's been on my descendant during this period when there've been, three beloved friends who've passed away actually. So yeah, a lot of loss, dealing with a lot of loss. And I know other people who found this period quite tumultuous. Although I have to say, there's been a couple of quite amazing love stories I've heard about, new loves, unexpected, bursting into life as well. It was a solar eclipse, a new moon eclipse, and also it was so lovely to hear of those kind of highs. The eclipses are these highs and lows of life, aren't they? Very much so.
Yeah, and also kind of, I mean, I've heard a lot of breakups actually. Um,
Yes,
and
yeah.
I'm afraid that's because it's like Libra Aries, it's that axis of one-on-one relationships. Um, and also there's been quite a bit of one of my kids didn't have her phone for the whole time because she
Hmm.
she lost it, and I found that really interesting because we're all cyborgs, right? So we need our phones. So it's like literally having a limb cut off. And so that's been interesting as well. There has been this loss, either of communications or on a much grander scale like yours. I
Mm.
hope you're feeling okay, Sally. Are you feeling steady with all this
I
loss?
am. I am. It's been rolling through. It's
Yeah.
been rolling through. Um, and to be honest, it really helps having the astrology.
Yeah.
And being able to get this kind of wider perspective of life. It's interesting as we're moving into Scorpio season, which is very much again the sign of death, rebirth, renewal, isn't it? It's the time of year when everything mulches and composts, things quieten down, things die away. But a reminder that compost of life, in a way, will generate new growth. So this cycle of life, death, and rebirth. I mean, as I'm a Sun Scorpio, as most of you know, so I do feel very much connected to that, and yeah, I mean, just to sort of say on a personal note, a real clear and poignant example of that was losing my mother. My mother died when I was 8 months pregnant.
Mm.
That is such a scorpionic experience, isn't it? That
Mm.
there's the passing of time, and then this literal new birth. So yeah, it really helps having the astrology to get this bigger perspective on it, and to feel part of something beyond myself as well. And I mean that's really helpful actually.
Yeah. Astrology, I mean, it's interesting about astrology, isn't it? There's so many levels to it.
Mm,
But the same is true, I guess, of any system of knowledge or system of thinking of, yeah, system of knowledge,
yeah.
or philosophy. And I do think that the thing that astrology gives us is you could see that you're part of a much, much bigger pattern.
Mm,
And you start to see the pattern all around you with
mm,
people.
mm,
And uh, um, and the other thing about astrology, I think, is that you do need to have a philosophy if you're an astrologer.
yeah.
You need to have some kind of philosophy of how things work. Otherwise, you're just, playing at the edges,
Mm,
of what's the meaning of life? What's it all for? And I think those are all questions that one ponders in Scorpio season.
mm, mm. It's a powerful season, isn't it? Scorpio season. I mean, I'd say that as it's on Scorpio, but I just think it is. It's profound. And I think we're kind of also more aware of it at the moment, or maybe more sort of integrated into it because Pluto, Scorpio's co-ruler, is so powerful at the moment as well, isn't it? I mean, it's, in this last month, it's turned direct at 29 Capricorn and is completing its journey through Capricorn. And will, leave there on November the 15th and move into Aquarius. So it feels like we're going into this Scorpio season with a lot of Pluto power pushing us forward, as well.
Yeah, it's really powerful. And of course, the other, I mean, we'll talk about this deeper in the podcast, but the other ruler of Scorpio is Mars, and those two are doing stuff together. Pluto and Mars are in opposition.
Mm.
And they're already, you know, they're the opposition is not exact yet. It will be
Mm.
just before the US election, but it's, you can feel it. You know,
Mm.
there's this crackle of tension across Cancer Capricorn at the moment, which is these, and it's these Scorpio planets, which are both warriors.
Mm.
Um, you know, it's that we need not point out too much. I mean, when I came back from this lovely time in Venice, I have to say I'd had a news blackout. And all I can say is thank God I had a news blackout, because the news
Mm.
was so bad in the world,
Yeah.
with sort of death and mayhem
Mm.
released into the world, that actually I came back and I found that I was crying a lot, which is also very Piscean, is
Mm.
to be crying for the sadness in the world and the madness. And that's
Mm.
also an eclipsey thing, as a release of this like madness that's
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah. It's been a really powerful couple of months, I think, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Sort of, the eclipse in Pisces, Virgo, the solar eclipse in Libra, the full moon as well, caught up with that Mars Pluto on the 17th. So yeah, big energy moving us forward. So maybe going into Scorpio season, it is like looking at, okay, what can we transform? This transformation is such a powerful Scorpio word. I feel it's, how can you dig deep and transform things, to sort of reorient yourself during this time. I mean, what do you think about Scorpio? I mean, some people hate Scorpio. Well, that's a tough word. Some people are scared of Scorpio or find it kind of,
Mm.
oh God, when sometimes when I say I'm a Scorpio, people almost back away a little. It's like,
No, it's quite a good
terrifying.
way. It's a chill, it has a chilling effect. What's it called in a gambling casino? It's called being a cooler, isn't it? When you bring down the luck at a table, you're a cooler. Um, yeah, well, Scorpio mixed. You know, I
Mm,
get along with Scorpio really well. I'm a Pisces, but I've had Scorpios who've been incredibly mean to me.
yeah,
Um, and it is a sign that can be really mean
yeah, it is.
and unforgiving and vengeful. You know, people who, and I find it, and it can be very negative as
Mm,
well. So that's the transformation that Scorpios need to do, is to transform that negativity into something. How do you use that into something that's positive?
yeah.
And you see a lot of Scorpio people in hospitals and places working in, or working on the front line, doing
Mm,
really difficult jobs of
mm,
healing, actually, because I don't think it's really talked about as a healing sign enough. But it's
mm,
the kind of healing which is about cutting out the cancer and stitching
mm,
up the wound. You know, it's
mm,
really kind of that radical kind of healing that comes from Scorpio.
mm.
So I really enjoy that Scorpio energy, but I do think it's frightening.
Yeah. And that's often when one of the first things I say about Scorpio is, I mean, it is power is a key concept, but it's, what do you do with that power? How do you wield that power? Do you use it for good effect or bad effect? If you're thinking, I couldn't help notice that P. Diddy, the
Yeah.
rapper who's in jail at the moment, and all these abuse charges, sex trafficking charges going on. I mean, he's a Scorpio, and his Mars is at 29 Capricorn, so Pluto's bang on it. There's this, and not surprising, it's kind of Pluto is shining a light on the darkness. So, there's it's kind of like whatever he's done in the past, it's kind of, with how has he been wielding the power. And then you get another example who I have spoken about in the past, the Yvon Chouinard, who was the founder of Patagonia, the outdoor fashion company, who, very successful company, and he put it all into a trust. So all the investment of the company can go towards fighting climate change. It's sort of,
Mm.
how do you wield your power? I think that's really, really key with Scorpio, what you do with it, and
It's
know its
interesting
power.
about P. Diddy. I haven't looked at his chart, but just you saying that Mars is at 29 Capricorn.
Yeah.
So basically, he's been wielding that Mars in the sign, one of the signs of like authority, right? So he's got that,
Mm,
had that Mars authority, born with it. He's been wielding it for evil purposes a lot of the time. And now Pluto's come, and Pluto's the planet of revenge and comeuppance as well.
mm,
And
mm,
that's associated with Scorpio, but it's very much so Pluto is like, now you've sown and now you shall reap.
yeah.
And so no wonder he's in jail.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. And he can't get bail either, I think. I was just looking at what was going on for him, and I think his trials, actually, that was the other interesting point on that. His trial at the moment is set for the 5th of May next year. And that's a day when Pluto switches direction. He's got literally got Pluto, Scorpio's planet, really shining this light on him, now and then as well.
hmm.
Powerful stuff.
although you wouldn't say shining a light with Pluto, would you? Usually extracting the light from him, extracting the energy, um,
Yeah. Yeah.
creating the void around it. I mean, that's interesting also because it's obviously going to turn into a huge show trial, blah blah blah. If it's televised, etc.
Mm.
Um, so we'll see. We'll
Mm.
see. And will he get away? Will we get that Darvo defense? The what is it? Deny, attack, reverse victim offender, which is used so often in this kind of case.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
it's been used by various male celebrities to wriggle out of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Okay, so shall we dive into Scorpio season then? The month coming up, it runs from October 22nd to November 21st. And some of you might have heard, we did actually talk about why Scorpio season's so spooky in our latest Astrology Talk Investigate, where we look at kind of Halloween, Day of the Dead, Samhain, all the festivals that take place in this dark time of year. And that always falls at the end of October, beginning of November. So do take a listen to that if you haven't already. But yeah, we're going into school. It's quite a lot happening in this month, isn't there?
oh Lord, it's another kind of like, oh my God, do we have to have? Must it be so cosmically busy? I
Mm.
know many people who are finding this, who found the last several months really quite stressful. In some ways, I'm looking forward to going into these retrogrades because, it might be a bit of a relief. So, we're going to have this Mars retrograde coming up. So, what should we look at first? Should we look at the new moon chart for the 1st of November, or?
Yes, I think so.
Should we bomb straight in there? I mean, we're coming out of this massive full moon on the 17th, 18th of October. And then we
Yep.
surf up to the new moon in Scorpio on the 1st of November.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it feels like an important new moon because I think that full moon in Libra was really kind of completing that eclipse season, wasn't it, in a way, the turmoil of that. So to get this new moon on the 1st of November in Scorpio does feel like a chance to kind of reset, recalibrate. Okay, what next? What's new? Where am I heading? So yeah, and it's quite a lovely new moon, isn't it?
I think it's pretty good. I mean, lovely. It does make really good aspect to Saturn in Pisces,
It does.
which I really like.
Mm.
I mean, having said that, we're already into that Pluto Mars opposition, which is making me nervous.
Mm.
So what does all this mean? I mean, obviously the new moon is really important for Scorpios and really important for Taurus, and all the fixed signs, because it's about, for Taurus, it's going to be a new moon. It's like resetting, beginning of some relationships, and for Scorpio, it's a moment of like self-reflection and inwardness, I would suggest.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's this. We're talking Scorpio new moon, so Scorpios don't do things by halves. It's an extreme sign, and I think throughout Scorpio season, you've got to keep in mind this endings, new beginnings. So I think this is perhaps what this Mars Pluto talks about. It's like, what are you shedding? What are you getting rid of? Scorpio it's the detox sign, it's the declutter, it's the de this, de that. Can be destroy as well. But it's kind of, I think on a personal level, think at this new moon, what you want to put behind you, what are you wanting to let go of? And that might be a situation that's to do with power and control, particularly perhaps for Cancer, with that Mars in Cancer being opposed by Pluto. And perhaps for Pluto, letting go of a position of power, for Capricorn, letting go of a position of power. There could be this sense at this new moon that there's things you want to shut the door on, get rid of. Okay, I'm starting over, I'm moving on.
Hmm. Yeah, I think so. I mean, one thing to note is that the Pluto and Mars are the rulers of Scorpio.
Yes.
So they are in opposition and they're ruling this new moon,
Mm,
which is a very interesting set of circumstances. Juno is involved. She's right in there with them in Libra. So there's some balancing act that may. I also think that there's something about letting go. There's also something about, I don't want to say giving up on something exactly. I kind of do want to say that. It's like you
mhm,
may have to cut something out that just you can't do, or you can't deal with anymore.
mm,
And it is about power and it's about tribe because the Pluto is in the place of authority, right? This is a Capricorn is about authority. Cancer is about family or tribe. And those two things, they are in conflict across the chart. It's like, whose side are you on? And I think judgments are going to be made. There's no doubt in my mind that this is going to be very important at the US election, which, of course, we're moving into from the 1st of
mm,
November. The election itself is on the 5th, but that opposition is ongoing past the election day.
mm, mm. Yeah, it's exact on the third, isn't it? The Mars Pluto, that's when it's powerful,
Yeah.
but it's powerful during this period until really they start to move on.
And
I mean, it may shift when Mars moves into Leo. Do you think? Because it will sort of release it in a way. I mean, that happens on the fourth.
yeah, I think it
Could it?
could. But I actually think that it's like an ongoing issue because then they're going to have two more hits of this opposition, aren't they?
Yeah, in Leo and Aquarius, they happen on the 3rd of January 2025 at 1 degrees Leo Aquarius and 3 degrees Leo and Aquarius on April 27th, 2025. So it's like what's the conflict now?
Yeah.
Where the conflict is now, that is still going to be playing out, isn't it? Maybe in a new shape or form as it moves into Leo Aquarius. But yeah, these two are not letting go of one another for the next few months. So very interesting regarding the US election, what's happening there, this conflict staying in place, which is highly likely.
Hmm. Well, I mean, and also it suggests that we might not be aware of what the result is on the 5th.
Mm.
Um, because there's stuff to work out.
Mm.
Um, so we'll see, and that may be in court with the Juno in Libra and the South Node in Libra. There may be some, that. I mean, it doesn't take an astrologer to say that there's going to be court cases
Mm.
around this.
Mm.
But it's a matter of how quickly they can be resolved. But there are other conflicts, which are both about tribe and the land,
Yeah.
which again are playing out across Ukraine, Middle East, Sudan, and that line
Mm.
on that side of the world. Well, it's not very far from here, actually, folks.
Yeah.
When we get an east wind, it blows from Ukraine.
Yeah.
Um, that it's direct from Ukraine. So that conflict, those conflicts look like there may be something happening, I think, also at this new moon on the 1st of November.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. And I was just going to say on a personal level as well. I mean, like we're talking about with Scorpio, how do you wield your power? This is for everyone. Think about how you wield your power. It could be a time when you want to sort of lash out and attack, but is that wise? I'm very at this new moon. I mean, the trine aspect to Saturn is really, I think it's quite important and quite pivotal. And I mean, Saturn is changing direction as well, so it's going to stay at 12 degrees Pisces throughout the whole of Scorpio season. It actually switches direction on November the 15th when we're looking at the full moon. But it's digging in its heels, this Saturn. So, and as it's trine to the sun and moon at 9 degrees, there's kind of also for me, there's themes of, duty and responsibility there. And it's a time to really think about that. Perhaps for Pisces, where do you need to hold firm, put boundaries in place, be the Saturn, be that authority? So that Saturn is really strengthening, I think, the sun and moon in Scorpio, which could be helpful as this feels quite volatile because of the Mars Pluto.
yeah. And the Saturn in Pisces is a priest, actually, of some
Yeah,
kind.
yeah,
This is taking a kind of, I wouldn't say religious, but a moral, maybe moral and ethics isn't quite the word, but a more spiritual approach to what is, if there are any conflicts, and finding a resolution in that way. And it's about emotional boundaries, because it's very interesting when Saturn is in Pisces anyway, because this is a planet that is about boundaries. It's about the edges of things. Saturn rules the skin and bones, it rules our structure and our edges. And yet it's in this sign which has no edges,
yeah.
right?
Mm,
How does that work? Uh, what's happening with that? I mean, it's been there for a year and it's continuing there, but it's making this very definite trine to the new moon at this very important moment. And I think that there's some kind of way, this is saying, I was explaining to someone, that Saturn is to a certain extent the planet that says no,
yeah,
stop. Holds, and in Pisces it's holding back a tide, or it's putting up a dam. I find it really, the other thing that was remarkable about the um, eclipse season was the weather in the United States.
yeah,
Was to see the huge flood in Asheville was really shocking.
yeah.
Which it's in the Smokies. It's not in a flood place that one would think. But I think that was partly caused by a dam breaking. So there's only so much damming, that Saturn and Pisces there's only so much damming that can do. It's like, how do you deal with water? How do you deal with emotions? How do you control things
Mm,
without literally damming them? I mean, we're going to be seeing more floods, by the way, folks, as the eclipses really move into Pisces Virgo,
mm,
because
yeah,
Neptune's in there as well. So this is just the beginning.
yeah,
And then we had that huge Hurricane Milton as well,
yeah,
which was this
yeah.
massive watery stuff.
Yeah, and that was interesting. I mean, water, but also winds, and it was when Jupiter switched direction.
Yeah.
Jupiter, Zeus in mythology, the god of thunderbolts, throwing those thunderbolts linked to the sky and weather. So you could see the symbolism there too.
With those incredible tornadoes and the incredible lightning storm that was Milton.
Yeah, yeah,
That's Uranian as well,
yeah,
So there's the Taurus, the Uranus and Taurus is a sort of the earth shaking, isn't it?
yeah. Yeah, and
Um,
those, the modern planets are all working together at the moment, aren't they?
yeah,
Uranus is, when we're looking at this, 25 Taurus, Neptune 27 Pisces, Pluto 29 Capricorn. They're all kind of holding hands. They're saying, God, look at us, look at us. this
And
power here.
also in a, these are positive aspects between these planets.
They are.
So where they fall across they will fall across a corner of your chart, so to
Mm,
speak.
mm,
So say, for Virgos, it'll be in that opposite side of the chart, and it'll say this is where some of the power is with other people. There may be powerful other people in your life. So I find that quite interesting. And also that, when these planets are working together and later on, as Saturn moves forward again, which it will, it's going to come into good relationship as well.
mm,
But when Pluto moves into Aquarius, which is quite soon, that kind of breaks that really good. It's like a mini Grand Trine, isn't it?
mm, mm.
Um, that really so in a way, one of the things this month, as Pluto is moving direct out of Capricorn, is to think, well, where is Pluto? Where is Uranus for me? And where is Neptune for me? Where is that
Mm.
triple thing pointing, because now's the last sort of bit of that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. Interesting. And actually, the more we talk about this new moon, the more
yeah.
pivotal I realize it is. Because the other thing I'm noticing as well is that, Mercury and Mars. Mercury is at 28 Scorpio during the new moon. It moves into Sagittarius as well just after this new moon. And because there's going to be a retrograde end of November into December, it's going to be in Sagittarius for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Mars is at 29 Cancer. And then just after this new moon, it moves into Leo. And then it's going to be, in Leo and Cancer until the middle of next year, because Mars too will be going into a retrograde. So, we'll be talking about these retrogrades more in Sagittarius season. But both those planets, the talk planet, the action planet, they're about to start a new journey, both of them in fire signs,
Yeah.
Sagittarius and Leo. And those journeys are going to be super important because those planets are going to be there for a while. So, maybe this new moon is about kind of changing something or transforming something. And then you're ready to go and you're ready to launch off into these new journeys. Sagittarius and Leo, really important for both of you. I think something new, something personal that you're wanting to either say or do moving forward, and put a lot of energy into as well.
Yeah, or
But
and
and
um and this, so the new moon itself, I always say this about new moons, but this one in particular has this sense of burial about it, right? The
burial.
burial,
Mm,
the
mm,
burying of something, that
mm,
you might
mm.
be burying a seed, but you might be burying a bone. um you're burying it because then, so it's just a few days later that these things move forward. And again,
Yeah.
this fits with the US election, right?
Mm, mm.
It moves forward a few days later, but this is the burial at this moment. And it may be that it's a burial that then there's a disinterment, because actually Mars is going to retrograde back over this point, isn't it?
Yeah, it will.
I can't remember what the date is, but it's in, will it be January?
Yeah, it goes back into Cancer at the beginning of January.
Yeah. So back in January, it'll come back to this point where
Yeah.
it is today. And it may
Mm,
reignite these problems, and I have to say, looking back to a previous 6th of January, I'm not suggesting that'll happen exactly the same this time, but I think that there will be efforts to keep it under control this time.
mm.
Um, but on a personal level, there's a story here, that one story is finishing. There's a chapter finishing. As we know, it's a massive one. The Pluto finally leaving Capricorn for good, on, is it the 19th, or this is the 16th of
The 15th of
the
November.
15th of November. So it's
No,
mid
19th,
19th.
19th of
It's the
November.
19th of November. So that chapter is closing.
Yeah.
And this new moon on the 1st of November is part of that. It's like, what are you going to bury?
Mm,
And if you have a secret, okay, or something that you don't want known, or something that you just want to forget, which who doesn't have stuff that they just rather not think about? I know we're all supposed to process everything. Sometimes you can process things by burying it and turning it into compost, right?
mm, mm,
What is it you want to bury? What is it you want to forget? What is it you want to leave behind?
mm.
Do it at
Yeah.
that new moon.
Yeah. Yeah. Because fire signs, Sagittarius, Leo, and the third one, Aries, they're all very forward
Yeah,
thinking, aren't they? They're forward moving. They're looking to the future. It's like, what's next? Spontaneity, motivation. And yeah, close the door on what can you close the door on during this new moon phase?
yeah. Feels very much closer to the door. And also just keep in mind that Mars is about to go retrograde. It's really an important retrograde. It only happens every two and a bit years.
Yeah.
And wherever Mars goes retrograde, which will be across Cancer and Leo
Mm.
this time, does it go retrograde on the
6th of
uh,
December.
6th of
6th of
December?
December, yeah. It'll
Um,
turn retrograde in Leo. So yeah, this is and also that's important, isn't it? Because this is you've got a month really of it moving forward.
mhm.
So this is the first go at something for Leo in particular. I'm thinking Scorpio, it's your career sector. It's a first push at something. It's a good time to throw energy where the Mars is, but know that this is a journey. Know that you'll be times to put your foot on the accelerator, to back off. Things can change. Um,
It's experimental. I mean, I always think that this sort of um, fluid energy, the Mercury retrograde coming up, the Mars retrograde coming up, they're both going quite slowly at this point. And it's like, when you do martial art, when you do something like Tai Chi, you very delicately put your foot forward, don't you? You're testing the ground.
mm,
And actually, it's good to experiment because with the knowledge that you can always change your mind, you know,
mm-hmm, mm,
but knowing that other people maybe will change their minds as well. So deals that you're making at this point may not be entirely
mm,
dependable.
mm. And also being willing to fail.
Yep,
I
absolutely.
think that is that the Sagittarius in particular, I'm thinking, they're great at that. They'll have a go at something, and if they fail, they pick themselves up, crack on with something else. So, as well, it is. I think with this fire sign energy coming in on the back of this new moon, I'd say go for something. It's quite a
Mm.
lovely new moon for relationships for Sagittarius as well, with that Venus in Sagittarius opposite Jupiter in Gemini. That could be about love blossoming at this point as well for Sagittarius.
Mm. Yeah, and also very good for Gemini. You
Yes.
know, you're going to be popular anyway at the moment. You probably have a lot going on, Gemini. You may be feeling overwhelmed with stuff,
Mm,
but you've got, friendly support from that Venus
mm,
throughout this whole period that we're talking about, most of Scorpio season, and particularly around this new moon and then the week after.
mm.
So
Yep.
that first week of November is really good for relationships for Gemini in particular and for Sagittarius. Both of you
Mm,
should be
mm.
bouncing around, having, it's good.
Yeah. And also just thinking of a friend of mine, being around people in a position of influence too.
Yeah.
And being proud of what people in your life are achieving, and celebrating others too on that Venus Jupiter opposition.
And also on that, with that Venus Jupiter opposition, it's really helpful for Virgo, you know, who may be having quite a cool time with their career. You may be getting things published, things may be happening
Mm,
for Virgo.
mm,
And when you have that Venus opposition, it's like things come into alignment around your career or status. It may be to do with marriage or relationship, actually, that you actually are going to get married or come out about tell everybody that about your relationship, or it may be a career thing. And
mm.
I like it for Pisces as well, that Venus Jupiter opposition, which
Yeah.
like it is, go ongoing during. So we have the Mars Pluto opposition, which is pretty heavy, right?
Yeah.
of these really quite warrior planets, male
Mm,
energy. And then we've
mm,
got the Jupiter Venus opposition ongoing for some of this time, which is the lucky planets, the
mm,
joyful planets.
yeah.
So it's quite an interesting contrast. So you can look for that, and they're not, these two oppositions are not particularly an aspect. They're not in Ptolemaic aspect to each other, are they?
No.
Um, but that first week of November, and even the last around Halloween, in fact, we've still got that Jupiter um, Venus opposition going on.
Mm,
And for Pisces, this is also maybe a career thing as well, or a
mm,
status thing.
mm. Yeah,
Um,
it's interesting, isn't it? Two really, fighter warrior planets opposing one another, and then these two kind of lovely celebratory planets opposing one another as well at the same time. So, again, I think that comes back then to personal responsibility. Where you're going to put your energy actually. Who you're going to be, where you're going to put your energy on that. And be lovely rather than mean. I just want to say,
said the
says
Scorpio.
says the Scorpio. Be
Well, but you have
love.
got Moon in Libra, which makes the whole thing very confusing, doesn't it? Um, but I also
Who
want
am
to,
I?
yeah, who are you? Lovely, mean, lovely. Um, I want to point out that, you're back to you're talking about responsibility again, that what
Mm,
happens is that the Venus in Sagittarius in the last week of October makes uh, this square to Saturn in
yeah.
Pisces, and then comes into the opposition to Jupiter. So she's sort of taking the light from Saturn. She's making this conversation happen between Saturn and Jupiter.
Mm, mm,
And they're not tightly in a square, but basically, as Jupiter is in Gemini and Saturn is in Pisces, they're square by sign, and these are two mutable signs. They're the two teacher planets,
yeah.
and the more conversation one can get going between Saturn and Jupiter in general, as a sort of general rule, the better.
Yeah.
Right? Um, so
Yeah. And they will make their square aspect. They are going to be in square on at the end of December.
yeah,
That's, they will come together. So, as the faster moving planets move through Sagittarius, they're already getting this conversation going, aren't they?
and
Like Venus is right now.
she's all Venus is often like an introducer or
Mm,
a diplomat. So
mm,
when you see her, for example, in someone's 10th house in their chart, you often find this is a person who works in PR, for example.
mm,
She is a PR person. She smooths these things between people. And in this axis of Sagittarius Gemini, which is an axis of conversation and ideas and media,
mm,
it's like, first of all, it looks like there's a lot of conversation. This is Jupiter in Gemini. There's a lot of talking going on.
yeah.
Maybe it's talking about women or to women,
Yeah.
because that's the Venus. And I do note that women's issues are very prominent. Again, I'm thinking about the US election. Roe versus Wade is a huge, huge deal in this
Yeah.
election,
Yeah.
because do you want to live in Gilead, ladies, or not?
Mm,
That's the question you're being asked.
mm,
And it's actually quite a straightforward question. Um, but it's thinking about once, and this takes this very broad, okay? But Sagittarius is a sign of philosophy, okay? And big ideas. Venus comes in here once a year, okay? Currently, Pallas Athena is in the sign Sagittarius. Pallas Athena is, among many other things, but this is the goddess of mind, of thought, and of strategy, right? So thinking strategically about the position of women in the world may be one of the things that we're seeing in the news a lot in
mm,
this early part of November, end of October in particular.
yeah.
And there's a conversation, an important conversation that's going on around that. At
Mm,
the same time that there's all this masculine Marsy energy exploding
yeah.
across across this axis of power and tribe.
Yeah,
So
and which planet's getting the best support? Venus from
yeah,
Jupiter, actually, isn't it? Yeah, I love that the Venus is next to Pallas Athena during this new moon. They're 17, 18 degrees Sagittarius. So yeah, this is important stuff to debate, isn't it?
yeah.
Um
Well, and also
and
just
consider.
to have structured ideas about. It's not even. It's in a way, it's not debate. It's like, what do you really believe? What do you think?
Yeah,
What's
yeah.
your
What's
philosophy?
what's
What
your
is your philosophy?
philosophy?
What is your philosophy?
Yeah,
And the other thing about Pallas Athena, just as a passing note, is that Pallas Athena is a war goddess.
yeah.
So she is, she walks across the battlefield in her golden sandals,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, Pallas Athena is often in the charts of war correspondence, isn't she?
Yeah, yeah, I did a
Shows up
whole piece on
strongly.
I did a whole piece on that years ago,
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
that she's there. And
Yeah.
most,
Witness. She bears witness,
yeah,
Pallas Athena.
so women are witnessing what these war planets are doing.
Mm. Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
and the question is, and that I think is why these things are very hard. The election is really hard to call.
Mm.
Is which one of this complex cosmic pattern, which side of it will prevail?
Yeah.
And I don't think it's clear,
No,
actually.
it's very divided.
Yes.
And that's what it's showing in the polls, isn't it? It's very close.
Yeah. I mean, last poll I looked at was 49.2 each or something crazy, or it was
Yeah.
48.2,
Mm. Mm.
and also these other conflicts are um, very divide, it's not clear
Mm.
how it's going to play out.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh goodness. Okay, listen, I think we should move on.
I
This
think we
is
must.
I mean, this chart has kind of just brought up so much symbolism, hasn't it? And
Yeah.
themes that are playing out. But let's move on. And I think because of the time we should go on to the look at the full moon and talk about the rest of what's happening through that. Are you
Yeah.
happy
Okay.
to do that?
Go.
Oh, hang on, I've got to change it. Talk amongst yourselves,
Yeah.
she says. Okay, that's the one.
Hmm.
Sharing.
I was going to say I'm not seeing that, Sal, but is it? Oh, there.
Yeah, I had to
I had to do
move.
stuff.
I had to do stuff behind the scenes.
Okay. So yeah.
Boom.
Boom. But this one's makes
Yeah.
this. So, I mean, during in amongst all this stuff that we've been talking about, we've been saying that actually Uranus and Pluto are in a very good aspect to each other,
Mm.
right? And
Yeah.
this full moon is a Uranian full moon. There's no other way of putting it. And there's something that could be very liberating about it, especially if you happen to be a Taurus. Off you go, put your wings on, strap your wings on, take flight.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, the moon's at 24 Taurus, Uranus at 25 Taurus, opposite the sun in Scorpio. I mean, it feels innovative breakthrough. For Aquarius, I'm really interested about this as well, because Uranus is your co-ruler. This is happening in your home family sector, also links to the past. And Pluto is on the verge of re-entering your star sign. I mean, it's going to be a few days after this. It's at 29 Capricorn 55 during this full moon, but it's about to go into Aquarius. So, you could say with this moon Uranus, where are you ready to take a leap? Is it pulling you? Your emotions are pulling you forward to do something quite radical,
Yeah,
genius,
I
different.
I really like it. I think it's exciting.
Mm.
I mean, it could be. I'm interested for Leos. I mean, what are you going to do? What inspiration? It looks inspiring,
Mm.
this full moon, but in a kind of practical way, which has been Uranus and Taurus all along. We've had so much practical innovation. If you look around and you think, well, what's happened since 2018? Well, electric cars, solar panels, the way that we deal with electricity has changed.
Mm.
Um, you know, whole countries have gotten rid of their dependence on coal.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah,
that.
and money too. Cashless
Yeah,
society,
yeah,
cryptocurrencies, all the stuff that's come in with money,
yeah,
as well during this period with Uranus and Taurus. So another area that's been massively changing.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. And why is that? That's because Taurus is a sign of money.
Yeah.
Uranus is the planet of change, and it's
Mm,
been there since 2018.
mm,
So yeah, cashless society with its positive and negative effects.
yeah.
But we're all getting used to this sort of the digital money. Really, that's what that is saying. And there may be some news around digital money at that point.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, and also just on the note of money, for both Aries and Libra, this is your money sectors. This full moon is falling across, so it's a good time to be, full moon shine a light on things. They often bring clarity. There can be like a ding moment that comes at a full moon, so it's a good time to really look at your finances as well for Aries and Libra. Look at what you're wanting to reinvent, do differently.
yeah,
Um, and thinking about the future as well.
Aries might actually find another income stream. It
Mm,
might be as simple as that, as lucky
mm,
as that, is to see
mm,
something in it. You're seeing something in a new way with
yeah,
this full moon. And full moons are a culmination of something as well. They come something coming to fruition, or something that you may have started, 2 weeks ago or a year ago, is now coming to fruition, and it's allowing you freedom. Um, it's
mm,
I think I see I actually really like this one in in amongst that quite difficult stuff. We have this full moon, which is just feels less tight than the new moon to me.
yeah, it's something has broken open, hasn't it?
Yeah,
Something has broken open and been released. And therefore, I think that's a big theme on that new moon, really. It's quite powerful and intense, that new moon.
but it's the
Um,
day it's and then it's like the 3 days after,
yeah,
isn't
but
it?
then something breaks forth and you feel a sense of freedom
Yeah,
um, at this
something's
full moon.
hatched, like a
Mm,
phoenix is hatched, and which back to the Scorpio symbolism. Scorpio is sometimes symbolized by a phoenix, by something dying and being reborn. And by the time we get to this full moon, Mars is now in Leo,
yeah,
right? It's
yeah.
really, really close to getting to its retrograde, even though it's not till the 6th of December, but still it's going super slowly. It doesn't go forward very much further. It's sort of Mars is going through Libra, and you can say he's plodding through, or you can say he's walking very deliberately in Leo, having a very good look around at stuff instead of going fast.
Mm, mm.
Um,
Yeah, I like Mars in Leo. It's my own placement actually.
mhm.
And it does this confidence there and playfulness in taking kind of center stage, Mars in Leo. When you get excited about something, then it pulls you forward. I think it can be quite a courageous placing. I think it's where I find my courage. Don't always have courage, but that's where that Mars in Leo calls me forth,
Mhm.
and brings courage.
Mhm.
Also interestingly, during this full moon, it's moon and Taurus are ruled by Venus, and Venus has shifted star sign by this time, and she's moved into Capricorn. So she's a lot steadier in Capricorn, isn't she, than fire sign Sagittarius? She's kind of conciliatory, and
Oh, do you
there's a
think so?
steadiness. Yes, I do.
Hmm.
Do you not?
I think she's I don't know about conciliatory. Um, because I'm not sure I think of Capricorn as she is a peacemaker,
Yeah,
Venus,
yeah.
but Capricorn's not a conciliatory sign particularly, is it? It's a sign
Cardinal.
that's cardinal, right?
Mm,
It's about um and I find it quite interesting just to note that she's coming up to the bendings. She's coming up to the 90 degrees angle to the nodes.
mm.
So there may be some pivotal um peace talks at that
Well,
time.
and I think she's a peacemaker in Capricorn. I think she wants to hold
Mm.
things steady.
Mm.
It's an earth sign. There's authority there with Venus in Capricorn.
Mm.
Um, so I do think she's kind of quite a stable. It's a stable Venus in Capricorn. That's how I see her. And for Capricorn as well, bringing some grace and art and beauty and love and money maybe to you in Capricorn as well. But at the start of her sign, she's not going to go retrograde in Capricorn like Mars and Mercury are in their fire signs.
So she's there for a few weeks. Excellent cheekbones, quite often, people with Venus and Capricorn.
Excellent, yes.
Excellent cheekbones.
Good
Very
structure.
Good yeah. Yeah. So that's also really good for Cancer. It's nice. It's in your relationship angle.
Yes, and coming in as Pluto's leaving.
Yeah. So
what's that about?
Venus is coming along to sort of smooth things out and make things nicer.
Yeah, she is.
And this is true for wherever Pluto's been in your chart for all of these gajillion years. Okay, since 2008. With the spell in Aquarius already, as we know. Wherever that has been, there may be some healing that needs to happen. And maybe Venus can come along here and pour some of her unguent, pour some of her sweetness onto that. Not that she's always a healer necessarily, but I think she often smooths things out, makes things nicer.
Yeah, she's, pacifying peacemaker. She does have that. I know she's, we talk about this a lot, that she's also warrior goddess, but there's, I think she's a positive force on the whole, Venus. Jupiter and Venus, two best planets. So she does things for the greater good, you could say.
That's so nice of you to say that about
Thank
Venus.
you. Thank you. Yeah. I'm trying to bring some light to Scorpio season, which can be dark.
Yeah, it can be dark. So where are we with this full moon? We're at we're nearly to the other end of Scorpio season.
We are.
And so the other thing I wanted to mention, though, that I don't know if we've really mentioned this, is Saturn turning direct. And does it do that on this day?
It does it. Yes, it does. So it's actually direct here. If you're looking at the chart, it's direct, but it's same date, 15th of November.
So it's only just turned direct.
Yeah.
And now, which means it's basically stationing the whole month at 12 degrees of Pisces. And stationing gives a planet intensity. It gives it more kind of drilling into that particular degree. So if you have anything at like 12 degrees Pisces, 12 degrees Virgo, 12 degrees of any of the water signs, Saturn has really been there. And for Virgos, it may be blocking you or stopping you. Actually, it may be something about your relationship that has been blocking you, actually now starts to release from this full moon onwards. Some obstacle it may not move out of the way exactly, but you may come to an accommodation. I think Virgos in particular with that, but also, Geminis as well. You may come to an accommodation or some understanding about how to deal with an authority figure, in particular with Gemini.
Yeah. And interestingly, during the full moon, Jupiter's at 19 Gemini. As I mentioned earlier, they are going to make a square aspect at the end of December, actually on Christmas Eve, 24th. And Jupiter's coming back almost to meet Saturn. They get to 14 degrees when they make their square aspect. So, Saturn's really not moving very fast at all. So is Jupiter having to compromise a little or listen to that Saturn or make some amends to that Saturn, kind of coming back to meet it? Or is that Saturn in Pisces where you are finding kind of emotional strength and solace? It's kind of an interesting symbol, isn't it, with it? Jupiter sort of retreating back to the Saturn. The Saturn is super powerful, I think. during this period.
Yeah, it's more empowered, I think, during a station.
Mm,
I mean, for Gemini's, it's pretty clear. It's about some authority figure. Um, but then, for Virgo, it's probably about a relationship, and it's like who holds the power in a relationship, I think.
mm,
And Virgo may feel quite disempowered somehow.
mm,
That that you've got some big authority person who's the Jupiter and the Gemini for you, Virgo, and then you've also got your partner, and you're trying to balance those two. It's like balancing maybe your career or your parenting responsibilities with your partner.
mm,
Um, and then, Sagittarius, obviously, it's about partnerships because Jupiter is in the partnership sign for you. And then Saturn is to, in the home sector. So again, it's about getting and finding some kind of compromise. And I'm not sure which planet needs to compromise particularly. Maybe they both do.
mm.
But
Yeah,
Saturn,
I was
Saturn
going to
definitely.
say, go.
I was just going to say Saturn definitely saying no, you can't.
Yeah,
You can't do
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So Jupiter's saying, okay, well, how can we kind of move
How can we
forward here?
work it out? Ideally, they need to negotiate, don't they? They need to
Yeah.
try and work things out. And also at this full moon for Scorpio again, just going back to Scorpio, you've got Pluto, your co-ruler, just on the verge of leaving Capricorn once and for all and moving into Aquarius. So it's kind of what something may be coming full circle that started in March 2023 when Pluto first went into Aquarius. Again, for all the signs, you could think about what was happening then when Pluto first entered Aquarius. There's been a back and forth, but Pluto is going to move into Aquarius on November 19th. It will be there for the next 20 years. And for Scorpio, it is home, family, past, and putting a focus on that, a laser focus on that. What are you
And
wanting to set up
and
or
it's,
break down?
often when we see a major planet or an outer planet, which moves very, very, very slowly, move into a new sign, it affects everybody,
Mm,
even if you don't
mm,
have any stuff in early degrees, because it's going to be in those early degrees of Aquarius for a long time,
mm.
but it affects everybody. And it's really interesting to note. Um, I think we're going to be talking about Taylor Swift in our next Astrology Talk Investigates,
Yes, we are.
who has got her Venus at 1 degree of Aquarius.
Mm,
So she's already had Pluto there, and now Pluto's coming back. So watch her in the news
mm,
over the next few weeks and listen to our Investigates podcast because it's quite
mm.
interesting about her. But, this is a major, major shift. And it's going to feel like a huge relief, I think, for a lot of people in one part of their chart. How Pluto and Aquarius behaves, I think, maybe the subject of our next. I mean, we've talked about it before, obviously, because it's so important.
Mm,
Um, but one of the things that I've really noticed. Um, I mean, obviously, we've all been talking about, tech breakthroughs, AI, all of that has obviously been really important. But we kind of knew that. But actually, the thing that I've really noticed is the political power of big tech, how
mm.
they are manipulating the current election in the States. I mean, obviously, they did a lot of manipulation around Brexit and stuff, but it's just out in the open now. Elon
Yeah,
Musk being on the same platform as Donald Trump. That is so. Why am I saying that? It's because Aquarius is associated with technology,
yeah,
right?
it is.
And technology and communications, right? So all of the stuff, the breakthroughs in that were when Neptune and Uranus went through Aquarius, and now Pluto's following in their footsteps.
Mm,
But
mm,
Pluto is about power. And we see Elon Musk in on the platform with Trump. We know that JD Vance is being funded by Peter Thiel, who is another huge tech. So it's these tech bros, the
mm,
Silicon
mm.
Valley power coming out into the open is also this Pluto and Aquarius. And that's something to watch. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the thing with Pluto. It gives power, but also we need to be aware of the dangers of, don't we? Which is, a conversation we've been having around technology for some time. So it's going to, and let's hope that, there's Pluto moving out of Capricorn, which is that hierarchical sense of society. Is it going to bring something more linear, more equal moving forward? A lot to look at, but I think we need to wrap up. We've been talking for ages.
Oh, we have. We have
We
been talking for ages
have.
because there's so much to say, Sally.
I
Uh,
know there is, but we need to try and
let's
keep this to an hour.
let's bounce this out of the. Do you want to get rid of that chart? Yes. Well, fantastically interesting month ahead.
Yep.
I'm hoping that it might not be as like turmoily as the eclipse season, but
Mm.
there's a lot of tension there ongoing. And I would suggest to people just to remind yourselves of where some of the nicer, more flowing stuff is. And a lot of that is around Gemini Sagittarius.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just be a good Scorpio. Just harness all the positive aspects of Scorpio because it is the sign of transformation, putting power to good effect, and bring that sort of volcanic side of Scorpio moving forward. Okay.
We'll see you next month, but don't forget to listen to Taylor Swift.
Yep. And please do subscribe to our podcast platforms. Please do leave us some great reviews and share this podcast far and wide. We'll see you next month.
Bye bye.
Take care. Bye.